In the years 1306 through 1307, a creepy chapter unfolded as King Philip IV of France and his cousin Pope Clement V accused the Knights Templar of heresy. This led to a ruthless campaign of persecution and the confiscation of their immense riches. Many knights suffered arrest and brutal torture, including their much-loved Grand Master. Were the Knights Templar men more than just legendary warriors? Were they protectors or perpetrators? What were their bizarre habits? These are the creepy things Knights Templar men have ever done to women. Think you know all about the Knights Templar? Think again. We explore a medieval tale that's part epic, part soap opera, and all around jaw-dropping. Stay tuned because what these men of the Knights Templar have ever done to women holds more surprises than a magician's hat. The torture included branding, eye gouging, stretching on the rack, and more. What were the supposed crimes of the knights? Blood rituals for Satan, a two-faced skull kissing each other on the feet, navel and neck, and a whole lot more. The King of France owed the Templars enormous sums of money, which he was unable or unwilling to pay back. The Pope was jealous and anxious about the power, wealth, and popularity of the knights. Plus, he wanted some cash too. How did a group known as the Knights Templar, formerly the Poor Knights of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, become synonymous with vast wealth? Let's travel back to the Crusades, 1095 through 1149, an era of chivalry, bravery, and the remarkable quest. The Knights Templar, originally organized during the early Crusades, had a mission to recapture the Holy Land from Muslim rulers and vice versa. But here's the twist. The initial crusade did kick the Muslim rulers out of some sacred Christian sites, yet it soon became clear that they weren't coming back. A long, brutal, and never-ending battle began, and the exhausted European warriors just wanted to go home. Little did they know on their way back they'd be easy targets for thieves and enemy soldiers, facing a tough situation we can't help but feel for. The poor Knights of Christ and the Temple of Solomon set off for the Holy Land. They weren't conquering heroes, but vigilant protectors of fellow crusaders, safeguarding them from cunning thieves. They were true knights in shining armor, guarding pilgrims and aiding the wounded. Upon reaching Jerusalem, they settled into a royal palace, believed to stand on the site of the legendary Temple of Solomon, giving them their iconic name. The Templars weren't just safeguarding pilgrims. They had the blessing of the Catholic Church to set up their fortress-like monastic buildings throughout Europe and the Middle East. Why did the Church and elite provide the Knights Templar with a no-tax agreement and give them large lands? They were granted not one, but two vital rights. First, no taxes for anyone. That's right, no contributions to the Church, kings, or nobility. What's more, the Church and the elite donated vast lands to them, but that's just the beginning of an astounding journey. They were the most respected and revered military order around. Why? Well, they not only protected pilgrims and cared for the sick, but also achieved remarkable victories against the Muslims. This reputation as unwavering Christian warriors earned them fame and more land. But let's not forget that not every battle was a triumph. Many truly believed that by generously donating to the Templars or other military orders, they'd receive blessings from above, as if contributions were a fast track to divine favor. So, through taxes, tithes, and generous donations, the Templars built an empire of both faith and wealth. Quite the holy jackpot, wouldn't you say? The Templars weren't just wealthy, they were rolling in riches like never before. How did the Templars go from wealthy to downright influential? They established preceptories across Catholic Christianity. The preceptories started to function as a kind of medieval bank, first locally and later in most of Western Europe. But this bank didn't operate on regular currency. It worked with something even more extraordinary: parchments that acted as checks for departing pilgrims. Templars were sort of a guardian of your riches for the devout, a place where they could deposit their wealth safely before setting off on their trips. Templars also ventured into the money-lending industry. Despite Catholic doctrine's disapproval of charging interest, the Templars were able to get around this prohibition. According to many historians, the Templars were the first real multinational organization. Did you know that the knights we often hear about were mainly from the upper classes? It's not just because they could read and write, but also because they were the elite warriors of their time. Knights, whether they were Templars, Knights of Malta, Teutonic Knights, or any of the many other orders, were the elite warriors of the time. Even though many nobles were illiterate, they loved to have tales told about them and written about them. Here's the million-dollar question. With so few literal knights, how did the Templars oversee their booming multinational empire? The term knights might be a bit misleading in this context. Not everyone in the poor Knights of Christ and Temple of Solomon was a warrior in the traditional sense, but they were all knights for Christ, marching towards one goal: the protection and expansion of Christianity. In the Templar world, not just anyone could claim the title of mounted knight. They needed noble blood, fancy titles, and a wallet hefty enough for 3 or 4 horses. True mounted knights, well, they were a minority, but somehow they were the ones who stole the spotlight in history. Funny how that works, isn't it? Now, let's talk about the real knights. They were a select group, the cream of the crop, so to speak, with fancy titles like Duke, Prince, or Count. The Templars shock warriors. Mounted knights frequently take the front stage, but you know what? They could not have fought long-term wars or held onto the territory without their foot soldiers. Tens of thousands of devoted fighters were under the Templars' command throughout Europe and the Holy Land during their height of power. Foot soldiers were the backbone that allowed them to fight battles and maintain their hold on land. With this formidable force under their banner across Europe and the Holy Land, the Templars were a powerhouse. Foot soldiers were the unsung heroes who made it all possible. They made sure the territory was secured and that fights were won. What other roles did these knights play in history beyond the conflicts and chivalry? Don't let the image of knights in gleaming armor fool you. They had a fair share of regular tasks. Beyond their shining armor, they tackled the day-to-day tasks that kept the Templar order running. This included everything from maintaining and cleaning their fortresses to handling the purchase and preparation of essentials like food and clothing. The Templars' most well-known triumph was in the Holy Land during the Battle of Montgazard in 1177. They defeated the astute Muslim king Saladin and his enormous army of more than 25,000 troops with just 500 mounted knights and a few thousand foot soldiers. But 10 years later, they faced a turning tide as Saladin defeated them, along with others, in the Battle of Hattin. This defeat dealt a severe blow to the Templars and to Christianity as a whole when the Muslims took back Jerusalem. Approximately 50 years later, the city was briefly recaptured, but the Templars were not involved in the conflict. Rather, they discovered themselves withdrawing throughout the Mediterranean and Middle East, from one defended preceptory to another. The Templars and the other Crusaders had the difficult task of securing the Holy Land for Christ above all else. This was despite their commercial success and the favor they enjoyed from the Pope, Catholic kings, and the European nobles. Furthermore, the Templars were immensely wealthy, exempt from local taxes in Catholic Europe, and operated with an air of secrecy fueling rumors and intrigue. The Grand Master, a lifelong leader of the Knights Templar, held significant power, respect, and wealth, with many leading from the front. But they didn't last long as leaders because they could get killed in battles, even after a short time. Leading a secretive group with no loyalty to anyone else's rules made the Knights Templar many enemies among powerful people. In 1306, their main enemies were King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V. The Pope lived in Avignon, France, which further complicated matters. Lending money to France often hurts friendships because when people couldn't pay back loans, they blamed their friends. This happened in 1306 and 1307. Philip IV had borrowed a lot from the Templars, which he couldn't pay back. Over time, the Templars had gained lots of land in France, but it wasn't making money for the king, nobles, or the church. Both Philip and Clement wanted the Templars' wealth. In 1307, the Templar Grand Master Jacques de Molay was invited for negotiations, which were a gimmick. Philip looked into rumors of unholy rites, such as worshipping Baphomet and participating in homosexual behavior, while the Pope questioned him about claims of criminal activity. These turned out to be largely true. There were Templar knights with bizarre fetishes and fondness for men. This was diabolical at the time. Today, it's naturally and rightly generally accepted. The Templars were arrested, tortured, and made false confessions. In 1314, Jacques de Molay and others were burned at the stake. Property owned by the Templars was taken and the order was dissolved. De Molay's curse came true with the deaths of the king and the pope and the end of Philip's line. In 2006, Pope Benedict XVI officially apologized to the Knights Templar, acknowledging that their charges were untrue. What are your impressions of the Knights Templar and their riveting history? Does it still seem all Greek to you? Share your 2 cents in the comments below and subscribe to this channel for more interesting videos.